Hello and welcome to this podcast episode of Young and Awakening. Today I have Annette Ebbinghaus with me. And as you know, the Young and Awakening podcast is a podcast series for and about spiritually awakening teenagers. And first of all, welcome, Annette. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here, Matilda.
Yeah, so I will read a bit from Annette's bio so you know who she is. She's really an expert in her field of sophrology. So this is really amazing. But I can say that Annette Ebbinghaus is a globally sought after mental fitness coach. She's a master sophrologist, a mentor, and a speaker, and she specializes in helping adolescents transform anxious energy into calm confidence through her bespoke beChill programs. She also works with individuals with an emphasis on burnout prevention, stress and sleep management, anxiety, self-development, and high performance. And Annette has been educated in several fields, beginning with civil engineering, then shifting to sustainable development in business, and ultimately into stress management and wellness. She not only draws from her 30 years plus experience working with clients, but also from moving between 4 continents, being a mother and competitive athlete. And you're now in Switzerland in Europe, right, Annette?
Yes, that's true. That's right. I am in Switzerland. I moved here in 2005, and that's kind of when everything kind of began.
Yeah, so that's what I want to know. Can you share how you came to do this amazing work, not only with adolescents, because you work with grown-ups too, but this is really the theme you're focusing on, right?
Yes, no, that's true. So a little bit of the history. So I'll start with just before we moved here to Switzerland, and I started my life as a civil engineer, as you mentioned, building bridges, and this was in Canada. And then I moved into sustainability, and that was after doing an MBA. So I've got a number of degrees, so I shall say that.
Yeah, I left that out, but there was really a lot of things you have done throughout your life. That's really, really
Yeah,
amazing.
I've been in school for a long time, many years. Anyway, so after this, I ended up finding myself in Switzerland. This was back in the 1990s, and I had been married for 8 years already. My husband stayed in Canada. So he said, yeah, go for it. So I moved to Switzerland, loved my job. He then came over here, did his MBA here. Then we moved to Singapore. And when we were in Singapore, this is when I gave birth to my children. And that's when I started shifting my focus away from sort of business and engineering. And I started studying the body. And I discovered sort of a whole new world out there when I started doing that. And fast forward, we then ended up moving to the US. We were there for a number of years and then back to Switzerland. So when we came back to Switzerland, I had 2 young children in tow, and I did not find the move easy at all. One, it was getting back to French, and my French isn't great, so that was a bit of an issue. My children didn't speak any French, and I remember once in the car we were driving, and I had to speak French to somebody at the store, and they just kind of looked at me like, "What?" They'd never heard me speak French before. Like, "What? These words coming out of my mother's mouth?" So that was a bit, it was very different going from Atlanta, Georgia, to like the small little town we live in Switzerland. Well, it was a bit of a shock. And then for the kids too, they went from a small Montessori school to a huge international school. So that was a whole new thing too. And with kids from so many different cultures speaking different language where English wasn't their native tongue. So it was a big shift for them, which as a mom, you're not worried, but you want to make sure your kids have a good transition. And that's a bit of a challenge. And then as well, I found myself, my husband worked a lot, he traveled a lot. So I was kind of doing the whole move myself. And you have to find new doctors. We had a lot of food allergies. So trying to figure out what was in all of these foods, I was kind of in overload. Like I was really in overload. I had done so many moves, and I thought, I was the queen. I was always doing so many things, doing everything well. And I would say, when I moved here, it was like Wonder Woman's plane crashed in the Swiss Alps. I crashed. It was
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm overwhelmed.
And was this the step into seeking this information or seeking this new path for you?
Yeah, actually. So once all this kind of happened, I thought, okay, I really need to do something because I'm a high energy individual, and I just found myself like, yeah, not being able to keep my calm and my cool. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to make it. Because, you know, the other thing is you're far away from family, far away from everybody you know. So it's not simple. So yeah, I found sophrology. This is where I found sophrology. And sophrology was started here in Switzerland in the 1960s. So a long time ago, but it's not something that's really well known in the English language. So I started learning sophrology to become a practitioner because I tried it. I thought, okay, I like this. And it's transformative. So it really started to transform the way I looked at things. And when I had to do my practical work for my diploma, I decided to work with people that I knew. So other people like me. So it was expat moms. And they really liked what I was teaching them as well. And so I found myself then organizing these mother-daughter workshops because I really wanted to teach it to my daughter, because she was struggling probably more than my son with the whole move and the whole new friend thing. And so I thought, okay, I want to teach it to her. So we do these mother-daughter things. And those went so well that kind of morphed into something called Families in Balance, where I would work with a parent and a child and do this workshop series. So it was good fun. And then that kind of is what shifted me into working in schools, because I could see with working with the kids what an impact it had. And the parents kept saying, oh, this is really good stuff. So I started working in schools in an after school capacity with middle school and high school students. And the schools that I was working in, it's an international school. So it was kind of interesting because I would get kids maybe that were 11, but I'd also have kids that were 18 in the class. So they were there for different things, but everybody seemed to get what they needed from the class. So, and I've been working in the school that I started in, I've been working in that school since I think it's 2009. So for quite a long time. And then I started offering workshops outside to other students, and then offering sessions one-to-one. And it just kind of grew and grew and grew. Eventually into my program, it's a beChill exams program. And then there's a beChill life program that I now teach.
Yeah, and we want to hear more about that. But first, I want to ask you, because I hadn't heard the term sophrology before I met you. But when you talked about what it is, it really resonated with me. So can you talk a bit about what is sophrology?
Sure. Sophrology, it's sophrenology. It comes from Greek. And it's really the study or science of consciousness at peace. And it's really the practice has three different principles. You could call it the dynamic cousin of mindfulness. You could call it that, because everybody seems to know what mindfulness is. And I'm also a mindfulness teacher as well, but sophrology takes it to a sort of a different level. So there's three principles. And the first one is to encourage positive thinking and feelings and actions. So we know that negative things happen. However, we want to set that aside and find the positives and reassociate with positive feelings and positive actions about ourselves and about situations. So that's one of the things. And then another principle is to encourage body awareness. So Alfonso Caicedo, he was a neuropsychiatrist, and he's the one who developed this back in the 60s. You remember this. In the 60s, he said we were too much in our heads already. And I think, oh my God, if he was around, he passed away a few years ago, but if he was developing this now, I mean, either in our head or in our phone, one or the other, right? So,
yeah. He would say we are only in our heads now.
We are our heads. Yeah. Who needs a body? Right?
Yeah.
There's some of the gamers that I know, I would say, yeah, they don't really need their body.
Yeah.
True.
Just a head.
So to get us, it's really about body awareness, and it was about finding the consciousness in different body parts based on how our nervous system runs down the spinal cord. So he was a neuropsychiatrist, so he was a neurologist as well. So he really linked this methodology to the body and how the body's nervous system reacts. So it's very, I really love the practice. And then the third thing was about encouraging awareness of object reality. And you think, well, what does that mean? So it's kind of like stepping away from or learning to assess our assumptions. So our whole life, we make assumptions, because our our unconscious mind is always scanning the horizon, whether it's safe or not. So the first thing we look for always is, am I in danger? And we do this without even knowing it. We don't even realize we do this. So that's an assumption right away. It's, why are we assuming that this situation is dangerous? So, you know, as a runner, I used to run on these field roads because I lived in a rural area in Canada, and I get chased by dogs. So anytime now running here in Switzerland, where, you know, dogs generally are on leash, I see a dog and the owner's not quite close to them, right away, I go back to that feeling that I had, that fear, because my unconscious mind goes, oh, dog, danger. Because I was just attacked by too many of them when I was a kid, right? So that's what happens. So in sophrology, it's trying to step back from this immediate judgment and the immediate assessment, and to try not to project our previous life experiences onto the situation we're in, and how to let go of these judgments. Okay, so letting go. And this probably is the least easy of the three principles to master. So another example would be, you know, as a mom, like sophrology made me a better mother for sure, because as a mom, I would expect my children to react a certain way when something happened. So if I'm using this principle, it's also called experiencing things as if it's for the first time. Okay, so if I'm using this principle and something happens, I have to let go of my assumption that X, so I do X, that Y is going to happen. So when I let go of the expectation, my energy level changes. So the energy I'm putting out is different. And I was so surprised, because practicing this over and over again, it does take practice, why wouldn't always happen anymore? So I realized that even my expectation, the energy of my expectation or my assumption, was impacting what was coming back at me in my communications and interactions with my kids. So, you know, I saw firsthand how when you put that principle into practice, it really, it changes a lot. Not easy, but it changes a lot.
Yeah, and that's so fascinating. I would also say I really love how you explain about how the body is also a part of sophrology. And we're going to try some exercises later in this podcast. So I'm really looking forward to that, and also to hear about more of the subconscious mind. But this program, beChill, I'm really curious about that. So what do they learn at the beChill, in the beChill program, and who is it for? So teens, is it anyone, or is it also for smaller children? Or
oh, well, thanks for asking the question. I have different programs. So I do have programs for children, and I run those within my Families in Balance workshops, because those workshops now are really for younger kids. And I like to work with the parent, because I think teaching these sophrology exercises and techniques to the child is important, but the parent needs to be on board because they need to practice them. That's
yeah, and also like you just explained, I think that was really an amazing example of how you as a parent can work with this as well to assist your children. That was really beautiful.
Part of sophrology, one of the building blocks is practicing. So it does take practice, because what we're doing is, you know, I was a bridge builder, concrete bridge builder, but now I'm building bridges in the mind. So like within the synapses of the brain. And the end of a synapse, like the axon of a brain, a neuron, you know, it has little wigglies. They're called the dendrites, and it meets another dendrite. So there's a little gap between the two. So every time you do a sophrology practice, you kind of add a little string, a little string, a little string. So the more you practice, suddenly they touch like this, becomes a bridge. So that when something happens, the signal is going to go through the strongest bridge. It's like if you have two bridges to take, one is a rope bridge, one is a concrete bridge, your unconscious mind assesses, oh, concrete bridge, safer, you take the concrete bridge. Same thing in the mind. It's like when you build this stronger synapse, and it's that positivity synapse, the message goes that way. So, you know, this is how we're kind of working. So that's why it takes practice. So if your child has certain high emotional reactions all the time, through sophrology, we can help them learn how to manage those so that they can communicate versus have a strong emotional reaction. But again, you got to practice it so that their brain takes that bridge versus the old habit of just flying off the handle. So that's partly how it works. So getting back to the program though.
Yeah, beChill. We want to hear about
So I do
beChill.
have one for children. That one again, and I do run that in schools, but that's a slightly different thing. The beChill exams is for teenagers, adolescents, and I do start with 11-year-olds because I start from middle school through high school. And it's for any student who basically wants to perform better in school, maybe wants to have more motivation, because we work with that as well. Could be students who just aren't comfortable with who they are, which I don't really know any who are perfectly comfortable with who they are. Students who do any sorts of performance, so whether it's sports or drama or music. So my son was a competitive, still is a competitive tennis player. So I started teaching him sophrology through his tennis, and then started working with adolescent athletes, which was fabulous. And I do work with that group of adolescent as well. So I think I'm digressing a little, so let me go back. So on the beChill exams course, we talk about a lot of different things to help them manage their exam stress, their performance stress, as well as just to be comfortable with where they are in school. You know, there are some kids who are up here, there are some kids who are here, and there's some kids who are there. And we all might be working to be better than we are, but it's to be comfortable with how we progress through that versus feeling like I'm not smart enough. There's kids up here who feel like they're not smart enough because they're not the top kid. It's amazing that you might have one, adolescent who's here and they feel that way, but what they don't know is that this person who's up here feels that way too. So it's kind of interesting when I work with them in groups, they all realize, oh, we all kind of feel the same way. It doesn't really matter where you are. We're all doubting ourselves. So I help them get over that and help them build more confidence. And on the program, we recognize sort of when our emotions really run away from us and how to bring ourselves back into balance and how to start practicing this non-judgment, right? So how do we shift this chatter? There's that nonstop chatter in the brain we always have. So it's how we can shift that chatter into positive chatter, because sometimes the chatter keeps running a sort of negative scenario or the worst case scenario. And when you get on that worst case scenario sort of roller coaster, it just takes you down. So I teach them how to get off the roller coaster before it goes over the hill, right? So that's another thing. So it's shifting that chatter. And overall on the course, they learn about 12 different sophrology exercises. And through that, I also have an app that's coming out, which I'm really excited about, to help them practice. It's only for students. This is only for students who take the program.
Yeah, you need to share with us how we can find that later or come back to that, the app, when it's done, so we can share it with our listeners. Yeah, sorry for interrupting.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. And the course is, I also have a beChill life course, and that's a longer course. That's like 30 sessions. And sometimes, and I run that in schools as an after school activity. More so when I work with teens one-to-one, I pull things from both of those courses, the exams course and the life course, because it depends on where they are and what they need. And I've worked with all sorts of teenagers. I've worked with some who have had so much anxiety that it manifests physically in that they can't swallow, or that they're sick, like they can't, every time they eat, they get sick. So I've worked with students that have had that level of anxiety. And then I've worked with students who were dyslexic and just felt like, that was a burden for them. So they could never achieve what they wanted to achieve. So help them kind of work through that. I've worked with kids who were super, like the top kids in the grade who had to get like a perfect score to get into the university of their choice. I've worked again with athletes. I've worked with kids who really were unmotivated to study. They did okay in school, but they just didn't do enough work. So I've worked with them to help them step their game up a little bit, so they had a little more motivation to get just that few extra points that they needed. So, it's all sorts of, all sorts.
Yeah, I think everyone can relate to at least one of the examples you gave. I was just like, yeah, I know. Those are so common in adults and teens also, really. So what I'm really excited to hear about is also, or more curious to hear about, what about your own teenage years? So which of the examples were you, but more about what happened in your own teenage year that you feel like sharing with us?
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, me as a teenager. Well, okay, so I grew up in like a rural area, but fairly close to Windsor, Ontario, but a rural area. So when I went to high school, my first time experiencing getting on a bus to go to school, and people were bused like for hours to get into this big school. And I went to a small elementary, middle school, and then boom, I went into this massive high school. And it was just so different for me because there were so many people. And at that time too, I kind of decided, okay, I can recreate myself. So I didn't really hang out with all of my elementary school friends anymore, and they weren't too happy about that. So, they were like threatening me and all this sort of stuff. So I had to deal with some weird kind of passive aggressive anger from my old friends because I wanted to do things differently. So that kind of made me unsettled right from the start. Fortunately, I had an older brother and sister at the school, so that helped a little bit. But I decided I was going to get involved in everything. Why not? So I figured that way I'd have friends in every specter. And it wasn't that I was good at everything. I just figured this way I would have friends everywhere. And that kind of worked. But then you find yourself without any really good friend. And I did have a really good friend, but then she moved away partway through high school. And that was tough because then in our group, I was kind of like the third wheel because everyone else in the group, they had gone to the same like elementary, middle school, so they knew each other. So I was part of the group, but I wasn't like part of the group, kind of that sort of feeling. And that's a bit uncomfortable. And I know a lot of teenagers today that are like that. And, it's not comfortable to find your way. So that was me. And then, of course, I wanted being involved in everything meant I was quite busy, and I was a good student. I was a good student. And I was always aspiring to be better student than I was, but again, I was quite busy, so that wasn't so easy. And then I had a household of teenagers because I'm one of 6 kids, and we're all like a year apart, 13 months apart. 5 of us are, and then there's
wow, busy mom.
yeah. So my parents, they were kind of strict, and we had a really modest income, so not a lot of cash laying around. So we all had to kind of, sink or swim, figure things out for ourselves. And it was a busy household. We all had chores. There was a lot to be done. Lots of, well, with that many kids, we had fighting and all the usual stuff. But for me, my escape, I became a runner, and my escape was to go out and run. That's how I kind of get out of the house and sort things out in my own head. And then one thing that happened, well, there was a number of things, but one of the big things that kind of happened when I was a teenager, I guess you could call it maybe some defining moments if you talk about
yeah.
it. But yeah. Because there were several, but one of them was at school. I knew that I had wanted to be an engineer when I started high school, because I had an uncle who was an engineer, and I thought, oh, this would be interesting. And I was the first one in my immediate family to go to university. So it was a big deal that I wanted to do this. And I needed to take drafting class, but the school wouldn't let me take drafting because they said I would be a distraction to all the boys in the class.
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
Girl, figure, that means I'm going to distract them. Like, come on, like as if they care. So, so I was kind of behind in university with this 3D drawing thing. And I didn't really play with Legos.
And when was that? In what year? How long ago is it that we're speaking? No, I'm not asking your age directly.
Now you're asking me my age, yeah. So it was a while ago.
Yeah.
In my university, in my civil engineering class, I was the only woman that graduated.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, it's much different now. And I did a lot of afterwards, help to encourage women. I would go to high schools and talk to girls to stay in math, stay in science. So I would be there to try to show them how exciting an engineering career could be, because, we had to get more women in engineering. Anyway, so that's a fast forward. We'll back up again.
But really an intense experience for a teenage girl who might feel that she's just normal, and then she have an experience like that. For you back then, like feeling I'm just a girl, I can do anything, and then you have this experience reflected back to you that you cannot. cannot be doing everything that you want.
Yeah, it's well said. And it wasn't like there was a rule. So I'd say, well, where's the rule book that says I can't do this? But anyway, so that was a bit of a setback, because that's when, I guess that's the first time where I guess it was discrimination, but you know, where I felt, oh, okay, this is going to be a bit of an uphill climb. And then you start to doubt, can I be an engineer? If I don't have drafting, are they even going to accept me into university? If I get there, am I going to flunk drafting? Will I not pass first year? Like, your brain goes from one thing to another, to another, to another, to another. You know, it's like, then you start thinking, well, what's it all for? Why am I even doing this? So that was one setback. And then I had some of my own performance anxiety. And I was in the band, and I played the oboe. So I was a flautist first, and then I became an oboe player because we needed one in the band. And going from the flute to the oboe is fairly similar fingering, but very different embouchure. And I had this big solo, and we were in a competition, and our band won all these competitions all over the county all the time, and for the province of Ontario. So we're at this big thing, I think it was in Toronto, and I had this solo, and I, like, right now I can even feel it. And if you get too nervous, you pinch the reed and you, like, it's terrible. And I'm thinking, I was just sweating, probably running up to this solo. And yeah, I didn't play it perfectly well. I will say that. I played it, I got through it, but I just felt so sick to my stomach. And I think I even was in the bathroom 3 or 4 times before, because it was just, I was so stressed out. And it was only like 6 bars, which isn't very much, but I was so stressed about this because our band was so good. And some of the guys in the band, I mean, they were really great, the trumpeters and stuff. And like, it all came down to this oboe player, like, so that was one thing.
And so were there any of the tools that you know now that you wish you would have known in that exact situation?
Oh, well, for sure. I mean, had I known sophrology, for sure. I mean, you know, this is what sophrology does. It helps you kind of let go of judging yourself first and foremost, but just let go of this situation so that you can kind of get into the zone. You know, you get yourself into that zone. It does help athletes. Of course, it helps performers in every sense. And you just kind of can let go and just feel and sense. So it would have just made my life so much easier in a lot of ways. As a runner, it would have made my life easier. As a student, and then as well in the band. And I'll say there was one other thing that happened when I was a teen too, and it was I used to babysit for this family, and the brother of the mother, he lived with them, and he was in his 20s, and I never really quite could figure out why he wasn't babysitting these kids. She had, I think, 4 kids. Anyway, so I got to know him because he was always there even when I was babysitting, and he was a nice man. But one, it was like Thanksgiving, I think it was, and he committed suicide. And, you know, that really shook me. And I was 16 at the time, and I went to his funeral, and I remember like just walking up and seeing the casket and stuff, and thinking, like, for me, even now, I still feel that sense. I was so shocked by this. And then it started me thinking, especially, you know, when things are saying, oh, you can't take drafting, you can't do this, you start thinking, well, what's it all for? I'm thinking, well, you know, like, so if he committed suicide, like, could I do that? Is this what all people do? Like, how does this work? And, you know, you find yourself thinking about these things, and you can take your head in a really bad spot, you know? And so it really rocked me at that point in my life to know somebody that, you know, I really knew that seemed to be fine and just decided to take his own life. And so that really shook me. And I think, you know, had I had sophrology at that point, it could have helped me work through what I was sensing, because sophrology does take you also, if you want to, go into higher levels of consciousness, and that would have been helpful at the time as well. I mean, fortunately, I was, you know, I'm a Catholic, and I follow my faith. So at least I had my faith to fall back on, which was really good. But it didn't help me with what was going on in my mind all the time. That's where the sophrology would have really helped me a lot.
Yeah, and I love how you talk about that in some of your videos, how the mind works and also how the brain works. And I know you share this a lot with the teenagers. on the course and in the videos you made, what do you normally tell teens about this subject, the mind and the brain?
Yeah, well, actually, I really do think that it's pretty important that we understand how our mind works. And so I do start all of my sessions with the teenagers talking about their mind and how the mind works, how the brain works. And then as well, because we would say our mind and our brain are two different things, because our mind is where our attention is. However, you know, our brain is what works the mind, so runs the mind. So anyway, I do explain this to the teenagers, a couple of things. So it's kind of the mechanics of the brain that I think are really important. And I'll give you an example would be, so the limbic system in the brain, and you can think of the brain as one huge network. And you could think of that network like the airline network, the airports all over the world, right? Because think of the brain that way. It's just a series of networks, kind of like the internet too, but it's not the internet. So it connects a lot of different things, and it does it very quickly. And there's lots of intermediate, smaller little connections, and then there are big hubs. And so one of our big hubs is the limbic system. And the limbic system, they also call that kind of the workhorse of the brain. And it's the crossroads, because everything kind of comes through this limbic system, and it's where emotions and experiences are integrated. Okay. And this particular part of the brain in an adolescent is still developing. And it develops until about the mid-20s, and some new studies have come out and said even up until the age of 30. So it's kind of like our brain is a little bit like a half-baked cake, you know, it's not quite ready, but we're expected to do a lot with it, you know. So the limbic system, the intricacies of this is that it's linked to the amygdala, which is what kind of controls our fight, flight, or freeze. So it's our, you know, our stress response, and the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is what's involved in storing all of our memories, right? The short-term, long-term. It does other things too, but in this case, this is what I'm most interested in. And so the hippocampus in teenagers, it's supercharged, all right? So at this particular point in time in life, this is when this part of the brain has the most excitatory synapses. So you say, what does that mean? So it's little synapses, but they're not dancing, but they're excitatory. So what it means is that the turn off button, it takes longer to switch off. It kind of can malfunction in the teenage brain. So when they start doing something, it's not easy for them to stop what they're doing. Okay. So, and it's associated with emotions, impulse, aggression, instinctive behavior. It's very susceptible to hormones. And of course, in teenage life, all of the hormones are kind of floating around all the time. And it's kind of what contributes a lot to the mood swings of a teenager. Okay. So now we also have, so that's this sort of excitability. What is great about it is the teenage brain is primed for learning. This is why, I mean, it's the time to take some risks. So learn new things, like me playing the oboe, right? That was a new thing. And just going for it as a runner and saying, okay, I'm going to try to be a track star. That's what I'm going to do. Maybe trying something else. It could be parachuting. It could be, parents are going to go, what? You're telling me to parachute? But it could be anything like that. It could be archery. It could be maybe learning to dance. This is the time to learn new skills, because we have these excitable synapses. We also, as adolescents, they have the most gray matter. So it's the best time for them to learn new things. So taking new subjects, even learning how to sew. It's a perfect time to learn how to sew or crochet. And you're like, do people still sew? Yeah, people do still sew. So there's, like any new craft thing, learning art, learning how to blow glass. You know, this is the time in life, because the brain is most ready for this now at this particular time. Now, so the thing is, though, is this whole excitatory limbic system, it's not a good set of brakes. So we want to encourage teenagers to take healthy risks, because, you know, it also has them take other risks, you know, that their brain is wired for risk taking. So we have to keep that in mind, that there's this risk taking that goes on. Now, for teenagers, the reason they need to know this is it helps them understand why they might get overexcited at certain things, why they don't always sort of follow through on things. It's because of these excitable synapses, because it doesn't allow them to switch between tasks as well either, because the executive function part of the brain, that hub too, it's not fully developed either. And that's the part that helps us understand long-term consequences. So I'll give you an example. Is a good friend of mine, her son, he was like a camp leader, and they were doing something, some show, some event. There was a stage, and he decided he was going to backflip off the stage. So, but he's not a gymnast or anything. So he does this backflip off the stage, and he doesn't quite do it right, and he falls, he hits his head, and he ends up having to be airlifted to a hospital because the fluid around the brain, it's expanded, it's leaking, and he had to have surgeries. And in the end, he's lost the hearing in his one ear. So, I mean, that's kind of a stark consequence. But this is what happens: is you get involved in something, you get so excited, and you think, yeah, and the crowd is going crazy, yeah, you do it. It's like you don't make it.
Yeah, and and it's so fun when you talk about this. I remember that age myself, and what I hear when you're explaining this is like, yeah, what can possibly go wrong? And then you have all these examples, and I remember that age where I couldn't feel the fear, and I was really puzzled about it. I was like trying it out to see if I could get afraid, but it just didn't happen. And it would have helped me immensely to know that that was actually normal, and I didn't have to I didn't have to try to get afraid in all these ways that I tried back then. So that's really, really fascinating, and I love that you share that with the teens, because I think that's really going to help them to maybe step back and say, okay, I don't, okay, is it really fun? Then that's one thing, but I don't need to challenge it to see how crazy can this experience be. But
I was going to say, part of, when we do the sophrology, because we are centered in the body as well, it helps them to start associating with when it's too much.
Yeah.
Because the limbic system's overreactive, it helps them to go, oh, wait, okay, let's take a step back. So by taking, by learning some of these tools, it helps you do like what I call a break state, so that it doesn't go too far.
Yeah.
I have lots of stories where things happen, but you just think, oh my gosh. And sometimes I think about my own teenage life, and
Exactly.
I think, hey, I made it out alive.
Yeah, exactly. I think most adults can be like, oh, okay, I was lucky. Yeah.
I know
so
every mom is like, okay, that part's over.
Yeah, it must be like that. Yeah, that's amazing. So you share with the teens also something about the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind before, and we're going to do an exercise too soon, and we are running a bit short on time. But can you say a bit about what you share with the teens about the unconscious mind? Is it more than what you already shared with us?
Oh yeah, no, the unconscious mind is a whole different beast, and I love it. Because the unconscious mind, it's kind of what shapes our habits and behaviors. And so our conscious mind likes indirect commands and diplomacy, but the unconscious mind needs direct commands, like do this now. And as a teenager, again, the whole thing, it's like when your parents ask you to do something, you're like sort of listening to them. But if they say the word now at the end, you look up and you pay attention, because that's the unconscious mind listening, right? But if they're very diplomatic with you, especially with that heightened limbic system, you don't really hear them. So that doesn't help them do things now, unless you say now. Anyway, so it's based on, so the unconscious mind, it's really based in survival. That's its number one objective, is to keep you alive. And it runs basically your habits and behaviors. It remembers everything like an elephant. And it uses perception based on your experiences, and it doesn't really know what's real and not real. So even if you're speaking about someone else, your unconscious mind thinks you're talking about yourself. So because it doesn't. So this is where I always say, be careful what you say about other people, because there's a mirror looking back at you, but there's also a mirror in your head. And it is where all the learning actually takes place. It is actually in this unconscious mind. And the emotions, so the messages for the conscious mind come via emotions, and represses negative emotions for later. Okay. And it communicates in symbols, which is interesting, but it takes direction from the conscious mind. And it takes everything personally. It's very literal, very literal. So that's why, you know, your hairs can pop up in the back of your neck when you hear something, because it's your unconscious mind taking it very personally. Now, the funny thing is, it basically runs the body, right? So it runs that stress response as well. And it always seeks completion. So if someone tells you half a story and you have to stop in the middle, your brain is going to continually want to come back to the story. And I'll tell you where this is an issue, is if you're in the middle of a Netflix show and your mom yells, "It's dinner time," you know, and your brain doesn't like to stop in the middle. It wants to finish that. So it's really hard to break free, right? And Netflix is great because it always leaves you with a cliffhanger, and then you want to know what the next show is, what's going to happen next. So Netflix works on your unconscious mind. That's what it does, and it's very good at it. So
And I'm just getting the association of all the parents that try to get their teenage sons to stop playing, or girls to stop playing this game they're in the middle of, and it's nearly impossible to get them to just let it go. Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying as well. Gaming is like that too.
Yeah.
Like when you're in the middle of a game and you're in something, to get them to come out of that is really challenging because it's looking for completion. And those games are never done. You know, they're never done. The other thing about gaming is teenagers have more dopamine receptors in their brain. And dopamine, it's like that happy makes you feel happy. So it's part of the reward system. So all of these games are set up to give you rewards at all these different phases. So they become very, very addictive because the teenagers have more dopamine receptors. So for them, it's much harder to pull out of something that's giving them rewards all the time than an adult. Much harder. Like as an adult, we can't, if we're playing the game, we can stop and move on. But for them, no, it's not. And that's where the risk comes as well with all sorts of addictions. It's because of these dopamine receptors. And I would say as a teenager, I fortunately got addicted to running. So, you know, that was considered more like a healthy thing, was like doing sport. So, you know, it's one of those things to look for too. But anyway, so a big thing about the unconscious mind is it doesn't do any negative processing. So we can use different words to say something negative. So there's low energy words and high energy words. And I teach the teens this a lot. And a low energy word, for an example, would be hard. So I could say, "Oh, math is going to be hard. Oh, that test looks hard. Oh, that homework looks hard." So right away, you're putting in their head that it's hard. Okay. So your unconscious mind's going, "Ooh, this is hard. This is hard. This is hard." And it starts associating with everything else you've ever done in your life that's hard because it remembers everything. So right away, your body has a certain reaction to the word hard. Now, the high energy opposite is easy. So if I say something's easy, you feel lighter, you go back to when something was easy, you learn something quickly. It's a very different thing. So if I was your mom or your teacher and I came in and said, "Okay, this lesson is not going to be easy," and the tone of voice matters too. So this lesson's not going to be easy. So let's get right to it. And wherever there's a spot that's not clear, instead of saying is confusing, ask the question. So you put the word "not" in front of the high energy word. So not clear instead of confusing, not easy instead of hard. It completely changes how the unconscious mind takes in the work it's about to learn. And you can do this now because we have this chatter in the brain, this negative processing always going on in our head, always looking for danger. Our head it kind of gets stuck on the things we're not good at. So, you know, "I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that, So it might say, "Oh, I'm so dumb. Oh, I'm so this. Oh, I'm so that." So what I say is, all right, as a teenager, instead of saying, "Oh, I'm so stupid," say, "Oh, I'm not so smart." You're lodging smart in your brain instead of the word stupid. And at first you go, "Is that really going to work?" So I do some exercises with them and they're like, "Oh, okay, I get that." And then we do some exercises based on that, because it's really interesting how words and the energy of the words we use impact us.
That's such a powerful tool. But the exercise, now we're running short of time. So let's get into this. So I'm cutting it a bit in the end. It's not because it's not exciting. It is because we want to keep it in an hour. And then we will just invite Annette back on the show and get more information, because this is really amazing wisdom that you're sharing with us. So introduce us to the exercise in the way you like.
Do you want a longer one, like a 15-minute one, or do we want something shorter? Or
shorter, maybe?
Shorter. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll do something with the words that I just talked about. Why don't we do something with that? Because we can do that one fairly quick. It's a much longer exercise, but I can do it in a short way. So we're going to pick two or three common things that teenagers have always said they feel. So doubt. So we'll work with doubt. So the opposite of doubt is confidence. And then a lot of them, they worry. And that's normal too. It's called rumination. That's a normal thing. So we're going to work with worry. And instead of worrying, let's work with relaxation. Okay. We'll do those as the opposites. So now in sophrology, again, as I was mentioning, we usually do some sort of dynamic thing. I'll keep this short. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do what we call a full body tension release. So we're going to raise our arms up in the air. We're going to breathe in. We're going to tense the whole body. And then we're going to release the tension and slowly drop the arms and just sense the energy between the body and the arms. So we're going to do that just to kind of activate and become conscious of the body. And then whether you're sitting in a chair or standing up, we're then going to just do a quick, what we call a basic sophrolization. It's the same as a body scan in mindfulness, only in sophrology, we start from the head, and mindfulness, they start from the feet. So we're just going to scan through the body. I'm going to do it quickly. Then what we do is we move into the middle of our chair. It's our active position. So we don't want to be with our back against the chair. And we're going to then start a breathing technique. So we breathe into the abdomen, filling it with air. And then as we breathe out, we let the abdomen fall. If you can't do that, it's fine. Just breathe normally. But if you can do the abdominal breathing, let's give that a go. And then we start with breathing out, doubt. So we let go of doubt, however that feels in the body. So releasing that with the breath. And then as we breathe in confidence. And as we breathe in confidence, I want you to sense the confidence within the body. What does my body feel like when it's confident? We'll do that a couple of times. Then we'll do the same with worry and with relaxation. All right, so let's begin. Now we get to start. All right, so everyone just relax yourself a little bit, whether you're sitting or standing. I will invite you to stand up first. Just take a breath in, breath out. Slow the breath down. I'm just going to become aware of the body in the upright position. So just noticing your feet on the floor, and maybe the little muscles that you're using to keep you balanced. And then become aware of the body, maybe the bones and the muscles that are all involved in keeping you upright. And just become aware of the sounds that are far away, the sounds that are closer at hand. And then notice the sounds of your own breathing. Now I'm going to let go of all of the sounds so that we can drop into the body, letting go of the outside world, just becoming aware of what's going on inside the body, sensing, not judging. And if we have any thoughts, just let them float away or put them in brackets for later. Just focusing on sensations. So what am I feeling? What am I noticing? Perhaps for the first time. Let's begin by becoming aware of the shape and size of our head. Notice what you notice. Notice your neck and your shoulders, back of the arms and the back of the hands. Then let's drop our attention down to our upper chest, upper back, noticing the movement as we breathe, maybe noticing our heart beating, becoming aware of the inside of the arms and the palms of the hands. Let's drop further into the body, then to the middle or the upper abdomen, the softer middle part of the body. in the middle back. But lots of organs in this part of the body, so just notice that softer part. And then let's become conscious and aware of the lower part of the body. So from the hips all the way down to the feet. Noticing this longer, lower part of the body. Then become aware of the whole body as one unit. Noticing how all the parts of the body are connected. And just sensing the inner workings of the body and how there's so much going on. Okay, and now let's do a tension release. So breathing in and breathing out. Breathe in fully, then put the arms up above the head. I want you to stretch up on your toes just a little bit if you can, and maybe tense yourself. And then we're going to release that tension, blowing out the mouth. Slowly lower your arms. Just noticing the energy of the body. And let's do this again, raising the arms up above the head. Breathe in fully. This time, tense the whole body. Don't go up on your tiptoes this time. Just really tense. I want you to even pull your toes, your nose, your ears, your knees, your bottom, your tummy, chest. And then release that tension. Slowly lower your arms. Slowly, 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 slowly. Now just notice the body, the energy, because the energy is likely shifted. So what do you notice? What do you feel? And then I'm going to invite you to sit back in your chair. Again, just noticing the body. We're going to take an in-breath. And with this in-breath, I want you just to fill your body with a nice, smooth energy. And as you breathe out, just fill your body with sensations of happiness. Do that again. We're now ready to do the breathing exercise. So we're going to move into the middle of the chair, your hands in your lap. Now we're going to synchronize with our breath. So breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Now breathe out doubt. Breathe in confidence. Breathing out doubt, so letting go of all the doubt. And as we breathe in, filling the body with the energy of confidence. Letting go of doubt up with the out breath. As we breathe in, filling the body with confidence. Just noticing how that feels. Letting that confidence run through the whole body. And again, breathing out, letting go of all the feelings of doubt, just releasing that from the body with the out breath. And on each in-breath, filling the body with confidence and anchoring that within the body. Breathing out doubt, breathing in confidence. And take a slight pause. Let's not think of anything but our breath. So just noticing the in-breath and the out-breath, letting go of other thoughts, and sensing the body. Now we take a breath in. And we breathe out worry. Breathe in peace or relaxation. Breathe out worry. Breathe in peace or relaxation. Again, on the out breath, letting go of the energy of worry. As we breathe in, filling that body with peace or relaxation, that sensation. Releasing worry on the out breath. And on the in breath, filling the body with that peace, a sense of relaxation. Again, releasing the worry on the out breath. And on the in breath, bringing in the peace, the relaxation. also be happiness. So letting go of that worry or contentment even, and breathing in that different feeling as we breathe it in, sending it through the whole body, connecting with that energy. So releasing, letting go of the energy of worry, then bringing in the energy of peace, relaxation, or happiness, contentment, filling the body with that on the in-breath. One more time, releasing the worry. And then another time, breathing in the peace, the happiness. And then let go of those thoughts. And we sit now with our back against the chair, our hands in the lap. Again, letting go of all thoughts, focusing on the breathing, and then letting our attention fall into the sensations of the body. So what is it that I notice about my body now? Perhaps something shifted from before when I started the exercise. Just noticing the body free from other thoughts. Before I open my eyes to come back into the room, as I breathe in and breathe out, I just activate my ability to be confident and to trust myself now and in the future. And I also activate my ability to build a future full of well-being. And with that, I start to stretch my toes and my arms. Let them stretch, come up the body. And I open my eyes when I'm really ready to open my eyes. And at this point, normally what we do is we automatically write down the sensations because we're trying to bring them back to the body. So we always write down the sensations that we associate with and how we feel right now and here and now.
Thank you so much, Annette. This is amazing. I feel really good. It's a really good way to end this podcast completely relaxed and just really in peace. I really love that. Just before we end, if any of the teens want to know more about this or try this themselves, how can they get more information?
Well, they can contact me on my website. So it's trulybalance.com is the website. Yeah. And the beChill program, it's under the beChill tab. So they can just click on that and on adolescents. And there's a lot of information. And as well, I run classes online, and I usually run them in kind of around October. So 4 times a year. So October, December, March, and April, and sometimes in May. So they can find me there. They can also follow me on Instagram because I usually announce when things come up on Instagram, or I'm also on Facebook. It's Truly Balance for both of those.
Yeah. So we will post that links, and we will also reshare when you post it on Instagram. So our followers can see that you have something coming up. And just you have your programs in English, right? So though you live in Switzerland, you're teaching in English, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yes,
so it's fun. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm actually training some other sophrologists in the exact program that I run. So there will be some people in other time zones as well, which will make it easier for students to be able to learn the program.
Yeah. So is there any last message before we leave this, Annette? It's been such a pleasure, such a joy to have you here on our show.
Well, thank you very much. Actually, Matilda, it's been great to be here. And I love working with adolescents. You're like my favorite people because you are going to make our world a better place. That's what I really hope. And I will leave with a quote, and it's from a Chinese philosopher, Lai Zi. And I like this one. And I like this one a lot because it relates back to the unconscious mind. So it's watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. And watch your habits, they become your character. And you watch your character because it becomes your destiny. And it follows a lot with that final thing that we say on every sophrology exercise is that you have the ability to build a future full of well-being because that's your destiny if that's what you choose. That's
so beautiful, Annette. Perfect way to end this. Thank you so much for being here with me, and thank you for everyone who's listening to this. And you can contact Annette if you want to know more about sophrology or her beChill programs. It's so exciting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.